In the previous lesson, you learned about the alkali metals. But if all substances that were metals were made out of alkali metals, it would be a very tricky world to live in because everything would be blowing up all the time. You see, the alkali metals are so extremely reactive that they're not really practical metals to use for very many different things. Instead, other metals, like the metals we're learning about today, the alkaline earth metals, have much more practical properties because the arrangement of electrons in their outer energy levels of the electron cloud make them a lot more stable than the alkali metals. Let's take a look at the properties and characteristics of the alkaline earth metals. And we're going to start off by looking at where they are on the periodic table of elements. Remember, the alkali metals are the far left group all the way over where the most reactive elements are. The alkaline earth metals, on the other hand, are right next door to the alkali metals in the second column. We're going to take a look at the top 4 alkaline earth metals. So let's blow up these 4 atoms so that we can see what they look like a lot closer. Just like the alkali metals had some characteristics that were the same about all of its atoms, the alkaline earth metals are the exact same way. Do you notice how many electrons are in the outer energy levels of these electron clouds? If you count them up, you'll see that there are always 2 electrons that are farthest away from the nucleus in that very outermost energy level. And what's going to happen with those 2 electrons is much the same as what happened with the 1 electron in the alkali metals. When you have 2 electrons to tear away from your outer shell, it's a lot more stable of situation than when you just have 1 electron to tear away. So these metals are going to react, and they're going to form 2+ ions by losing the 2 electrons in their outer shells. They just won't do it as violently as the alkali metals did. They're not as unstable with 2 electrons in their outer shell. Now, what does that mean for where we find these substances in the real world? Well, interestingly, God created organisms so that they're able to use the 2+ ions of the alkaline earth metals in their bodies. Because they're just a little bit more stable, it's a lot easier to entice a 2+ ion out of the crystals and molecules that are in the things that we eat and then incorporate them into our own bodies. So elements like calcium or magnesium are oftentimes found in the tissues of the human body, especially hard tissues like bones and teeth. Oftentimes you will find the alkaline earth metals in living things. What about the characteristics of these metals? Well, unlike the alkali metals, alkaline earth metals are not extremely reactive. Instead, we say that they are fairly reactive. The alkaline earth metals will readily react with substances that are halogens, iodine, chlorine. They also will react with other elements like oxygen. However, they are not as ready to react with substances that are stable molecules, like water is a stable molecule. Remember, the alkali metals could react even with water, they were so reactive. The alkaline earth metals, not so much. Another important characteristic of the alkaline earth metals is that just like the alkali metals, they have fairly low melting and boiling points. Now, their melting and boiling points are a little higher than the alkaline earth metals were. However, we still consider them fairly low when compared with other substances and other elements on the periodic table. And then finally, the alkaline earth metals have the same properties that all metals have because they are still metals. They conduct heat and electricity, can be pounded into flat sheets and drawn into wires. They are shiny solids at room temperature. And unlike the alkali metals, the alkaline earth metals have densities that are more characteristic of most metals. All of them are denser than water because the atoms can pack together very efficiently. So hopefully now you understand a little bit more about what the alkaline earth metals are all about. The fairly reactive group of metals on the periodic table commonly found in living things because they don't react as violently as the alkali metals do.